Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're covering Holy Mage Haven. This has been a fairly popular deck for Haven in the unlimited format, and no surprise, it's quite decent. So you're running a bunch of low-cost amulets to take advantage of City of Gold. Holy Mage herself gets buffed through the amulets that you play, so you can play a heap of amulets out, have this buffed. It's also ambushed, making it even better. Combo it with a single Soothing Harpist, which isn't 100% necessary to win the game, but you definitely want one to pick up wins, as I've noticed that's definitely something you want. And with the amount of draw power, making sure you get Soothing Harpist really isn't that hard. So yeah, the main win con definitely being Holy Mage. You do have a couple of Storms, which are fairly decent, both Pinion, Prayer, and the Divine Birdsong, giving you just that little bit of extra. And then you can just finish things with Holy Mage pretty easily. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. Okay, so the first matchup for this video is going to be against Shadow. Pretty decent matchup, as they don't have a lot of removal. They definitely have some, so you've got to be a little careful when you play Holy Mage, but for the most part you can kind of just storm them to the board early on, and if they can't remove them pretty much straight away, it's going to be a problem. Plus, as I said, there are other ways you can go for lethal, so it's not impossible to win through other means. It's just Holy Mage is definitely your biggest win con with this deck. Also, passing turn 2 is extremely common, as you want those Golden Cities on board. I've made the mistake of playing Golden City from my hand a couple times, instead of just letting it come out of my deck. So definitely keep that in mind as well, as you want to have at least that one out of your deck on board before you start playing any of the ones in your hand. So Attendant of the Night, not really a problem. We're pretty much going to remove that straight away with the Black Inscription, because we're not dealing with that today. And we're setting up Morium just to really finish this off, so we can make sure anything they summon is going to be dealt with immediately. And Death's Ledger is a great one for that, as they're only going to get the 4/4 here, which instantly gets removed. And now we have pretty much a free turn to pump the board. And since we have another Holy Mage and another setup for removal, definitely should go for it. So our win condition here is probably just double Holy Mage and go face as much as we can. I think that's going to be it, but we definitely want to buff these absolutely as far as we can. Of course, double Gold City is better than one, of course, because you proc nearly all your amulets immediately instead of on a timer. So in most situations, that's definitely the better way to have it set up. But if sometimes you can't manage that, definitely leaving it a little longer is going to be fine. Like in this situation, I can set up my Pinion Prayers so I have something on board if worst comes to worst, they clear these. And if I use it pre-evo, I can actually go for a lethal next turn anyway. So pretty much regardless at this point, I was going to be able to go for lethal. So even if they removed these, I was going to pretty much have it. Even in this situation with zombies, we've got double Black Inscription to remove the 2/3s on the board, and the only thing left was the 4/5 that removes itself. So very easy lethal. So now we just finish our opponent off. Definitely an easy one. Next up, we are versing a Sword. This is probably one of the more difficult matchups, as Sword can be extremely aggressive, which isn't a great match for this deck, so you definitely want to try and get something decent in your opening hand. This isn't too bad because I have a decent turn 1 into turn 2 plays, but outside of that I might be in trouble. If you can get more removal, you might be in a better position. I would actually almost consider running the double removal amulet instead. I don't think I've actually got this in this deck. We end up getting Sacred Plea, which actually isn't a bad top deck there, instead of going for the Globe, as the double draw might help us a little bit more. So I made the right choice here, obviously getting the city out this way and then using the next one. City of Gold is just such a good card. Of course, we're in a tough spot because I really don't like dealing with this board. Unfortunately, we are going to take damage, and that kind of sucks. It would have been better if we could have at least removed both of these in this turn. And now they've made it even harder, throwing Frontline Cavalier down. Definitely not what I wanted to deal with. So I don't really have a decent way to remove this. All I can really do is throw this down, evo, and attack. That's really my only option. Either way, I was going to lose this bird. And I decided to go for the Fountain, even though I probably should have held on to it to go with the double Holy, but I mean, sometimes I do like to just play those out to get the extra draw, and in a situation where I'm on the back foot, I want to go for as much removal as I can. So Black and Scripture. This time we're going for Inquiry, even though we didn't need to. We could have probably went for a Mori. And then again, our opponent pumping as much as they can. Not a big shock. This time we're going to start putting these holies down. Definitely the best way to play this out now, as we want to start building up our win condition, especially now that we have Ariat. We probably should have started doing this a little earlier, but again, Sword is a tough one because they do deal a lot of damage very quickly. So now the idea is to remove both of these pretty effectively. And again, we got another removal, so exactly what we need. Now I'm trying to pump as much into this 5/6 as I can, so that I have a chance to go for lethal as soon as possible. Because our next turn is actually going to be fairly good. Because once we play Pinion Prayer and we use Soothing Harpist, we have exactly 20 damage with the Evo. So the idea was definitely to set up for lethal. Soothing Harpist does an amazing job with Holy Mage, definitely. Could not fault that as a combo. And finally we go up against Rune. Rune is not my favourite matchup normally, but in this situation it's not that bad. Especially with a decent starting hand. I mean, City of Gold is a good one, of course. I think this is the match where I make the mistake of playing it out. Everything else though, really good to have in hand. Sacred Plea, Black and Scripture, all those cards work wonderfully with this deck. I actually really enjoy playing Plea, such a great card. So yeah, I actually played City of Gold, definitely not the right choice. Should have went for the one out of my deck, and then played that in probably the following turn. And just left up the 1/2 here. Would have been much better. I mean, it's not the end of the world, it's just I'm going to be lacking overall now. Which is a little disappointing.
I'll hold my blade at Mysteria.
My main aim though is going to be to put some pressure down. Do whatever I kind of can. Especially when I'm trying to dig for some cards. So this time I'm going for the Blacken because Blacken can be targeted removal. And of course it needs to have a certain stat line, so I prefer to use that on lower things just in case situations like this happen and they go for an Evo. Of course we should have been okay with Blackened in this anyway, but it really wasn't going to be needed because we played the Mori that previous turn. And we get our Holy Mage, which means we can actually start pumping the board with some really decent buffs. Of course it's probably going to be a little slower than turn 7 because turn 6 would need to be nuts for it to work out. And since we don't have double Golden City, we can't fully take advantage of it. So we're definitely going to have to go on the slower side. So let's start off by removing those. Double Sacred Plea and a single Fount of Angels. Definitely gives us a nice buff. I could always have taken the risk, attacked and hoped for the next turn, but that was a risk I wasn't willing to take. For sure, it would have been way too dangerous. Now all we really need to do is hope for the best from this removal. And there it is, perfect. Going forward, it should be pretty easy to get lethal from here. Of course, our opponent could have something completely pulled out of nowhere, but the likelihood of that is reasonably small. Steering right, definitely a good one. Getting that ward is going to make it just that little bit harder, but since we are going to have the 3/4 and we're going to have Soothing Harpist to pump the 10, we should go for lethal very, very easily. I definitely enjoyed playing this deck, it was a lot of fun. I'm sure you guys will enjoy this too. So this deck, like I said, a lot of fun, definitely good. A lot of decent plays you can go with. Of course, if your Holy Mages are both knocked out, well, all of them are knocked out, sorry. All of your City of Golds get knocked out, or you just can't get past some stuff, it can be very difficult to win with this deck. but pulling wins out of nowhere isn't the hardest thing in the world with this deck for sure. It only takes a couple of turns to get a Holy Mage boosted up enough for Ariat to swing for lethal straight off one card, so definitely an impressive deck and worth giving a shot if you've got the cards for it. It's not overly expensive with no legendaries in it, so definitely worth a go. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe. You can find the deck list in the description below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.